Welcome to the HP Engineering video podcast. I'm here today with Emily Henry with Connect 4. So I'm Colby Post. I'm Vice President in the Rogers office. I head up our business development. Tell me about Connect 4.
Yeah, Connect 4. So thanks for having me on the podcast. This is super fun. I haven't been on a podcast for a little while. I had one of my own, but I just put it on hold in February or April. Time is escaping me. But yeah, so I started Connect 4 in 2021, and I just love people. I love connecting with people. I love helping people kind of chart their own path and create their own destiny through intentional relationship building. And so I created Connect 4 to coach people within the AEC industry specifically on how to do business development, how to build relationships.
And you got in the AEC industry, you were saying earlier, because your background is in...
Yes, so I'm a landscape architect. And I practiced landscape architecture for about 10 years. And then at that point, I realized that I wasn't really the best designer. And I just didn't care at all about construction detailing. It just bored me to tears. So speaking to engineers, there's probably a lot of engineers that love detailed stuff, but that's just not who...
There's a lot that we have on staff, not in this room right now.
It's just not something I was interested in at all. So I lift up my head and I was kind of like, what value do I bring? What value can I bring? I really love the art of landscape architecture. I love kind of the concept behind landscape architecture and how it creates those in-between spaces where we really live our lives. So I love kind of the storytelling of landscape architecture. So I wanted to stay engaged, but I didn't necessarily want to be the one doing the work, and I wasn't really the best one to do it, quite honestly. So when I was looking at how can I advance my career, I was like, I can talk to people and I can build relationships, and that's valuable. So, so after I had my first child, that's really when the rubber hit the road, because I don't know about you, but I can work long hours and like make some sacrifices when it comes to, balancing work and life, which is a whole nother philosophical conversation. But if you're doing something that you hate and you're missing out on your family time, and not that I hated it, but I really didn't, I wasn't enjoying it. I wasn't thriving. I just had to find something I was more passionate about. And so the people side of the business, I'm very passionate about it. And so if I'm working long hours doing what I love, then it doesn't, it
doesn't feel like you're working.
Yeah, it's enjoyable.
Yeah.
It's not, it was fulfilling me in a way that was more rewarding. So I went to my boss at the time and said, hey, what do you think about me transitioning into a business development role? Which in landscape architecture firms and, still in the AEC industry, the standard most of the time is the leadership, they're responsible for bringing in work.
Yeah.
And there's not necessarily a standalone business development professional. And so I was kind of walking into some uncharted territory, and I'm very thankful that my boss at the time, Jim Mansky, shout out, he believed in me and said, let's give it a try, see if you can do it. And that, I never looked back.
Our paths kind of mirror a bit in that I was also in design. I focused on mechanical. Where they separate a little bit is where you recognized your own destiny. And I took my bosses kind of telling me, hey, Colby, let's get you out of the details and
come over here
start looking at things from a 5,000 foot view.
Right.
Talk to our clients. They always complimented me on my ability to service my clients and make sure they felt like I was taking care of them. And so they felt like that was my strong suit, not the design side.
Right.
I still like that creative side. I still like to see things. And what is awesome about the role I get to play is that I do get to have plenty of conversations with clients, talking about projects, but more on the front end, the narrative side of it, and getting things kind of set in motion. And then when things start getting real serious, the numbers start mattering. We've got a team of people that are great at it in the office. So it's awesome to have those people to support us. But yeah, I totally get what you're saying about the fine details not being your strong suit and recognizing that. It's probably best that you see it.
Huge advantage that you had all those years of experience. I mean, I feel that with landscape architecture, just like you were saying, being able to have those conversations with clients. I mean, I can have, because I was practicing and practiced for 10 years, I understand what it looks like. I understand collaboration between consultants. I understand what the client needs are. So being able to have that vantage point makes it to my advantage when I am looking to bring work to
the questions to ask that you wouldn't otherwise know. And,
right.
Had I not made mistakes in the past or encountered situations coordinating with structural and electrical, being a mechanical person, I wouldn't know to ask
right.
the questions that I'm not a professional at on electrical and structural, but I know certain things to bring up with architects so that it can get the conversation started,
right,
and then get the right professionals in.
Yeah, it's funny too. I feel like I'm actually a better designer now that I don't have that pressure on me to just design, you know? So that's kind of funny too, just being able to go around the studio, because I'm also the director of business development at Studio Outside. And so being able to go through the studio and have my opinion is pretty fantastic, knowing there's no strings attached, which is what I really like about it.
Yeah.
So
what's the key to successful relationships?
I think the key to successful relationships is really just getting to know people on a very intimate and kind of personal level, and blurring the lines between kind of your professional life and your personal life. Like, obviously we need to have boundaries. Obviously there's rules, when you're building those types of relationships. But I think that if you're really curious about people and ask people questions about themselves and their lives and what drives them and what excites them. And the other day I was having a conversation, I was at a networking event, and an old friend came up to me and said, "So what are you really excited about right now?" And I thought that was a fantastic question, because it gets to the core of, let's have a real conversation. Let's get to know each other really well.
It breaks that surface level conversation that people tend to have on a day to day. I mean, how many times do you walk by someone and say, "Hey, how's your day?" with not really expecting someone to get into the depths of that.
Like, do you really want to know how their day is going, or are you just kind of going through the motions?
Yeah.
And that's where true connection is. If you can ask somebody a real question about them, and you have to sit and ponder it for a little bit, and then you're able to see them and understand them a little bit better, and look for opportunities to either collaborate with them on future things or connect them with other people who you think they're going to have great synergy with. So for me, the success to building relationships is truly finding that real connection with people that you can build on and build those long-term trusting relationships and friendships.
I think another key element is understanding the timing of it. Mm-hmm. It's one thing to go into a relationship knowing this might be a person you want to start kind of getting to know, and y'all have similar interest in the fact that you're in the same industry.
Right.
But those conversations start, and knowing the timing to start using that relationship to discuss business, because it's not, you don't jump straight into business, but you also, don't spend forever talking about your personal interest and your families. And so, there's got to be a blend of both. And there's a timing piece there that you kind of have to hit right each time. And I don't know the exact number of conversations it takes to get to that point, but it's different for every relationship. It is.
But there are some kind of unspoken rules like you're talking about.
Yeah.
And those are kind of the things that I'm coaching when I'm coaching people in Connect4 through Connect4. So I put together this graphic called Warming Up to the Conversation. And it basically goes from like the first interaction to a trusting relationship, and kind of the unspoken rules between them. Like you're saying, like, you don't come in. I had a person that I'd never met before came into the office at Studio Outside, and he sat down and just opened up his notebook. I was like, "Okay, what leads do you have?" I was like, "Whoa, like, I don't even know you.
Yeah.
You think I'm going to share leads that are, clients that I'm trying to protect or fostering those relationships? I don't want to give up all that information to someone I don't even know. I don't even know if I can trust you, or that you're going to do a really great job or whatever." So building those, you're right. From building that connection, first, the first connection, and then being able to build a trusting relationship so you can really, that you can count on each other. That's when you can start sharing leads, and that's when you can start, having those conversations that you're not going to have with everybody.
So who seems to get that concept quicker, architects or engineers?
Oh boy.
And you're talking to an engineer.
That's a great question. Honestly, it really just depends on the individual.
I fully
feel like-
expected the answer to be architects,
Yeah.
by the way. Like engineers aren't typically the most social people. And we know that.
I find that definitely engineers are the ones that are do not want to jump in and raise their hand to say, I want to do business development, or do I want to learn, how to do business development. I'm gonna focus on what I enjoy. I mean, it's the same decision that I made when I went into business development. It's just the opposite one. So
it's just
that's
such
okay.
a different way of changing the way you think about a problem. I mean, as social as I am and as much as I love relationships, it still is tough to change the way I do my day-to-day activities, because I like results too as an engineer. And so I will revert back to those actions that I know will give me results.
Right.
Whereas relationships take time.
Yep.
You don't see the result of an initial meeting. You may not see the results of the first 3 or 4 meetings
Right.
in a relationship. Sometimes they just take
sometimes
time and
3
takes
to 4
trust.
years, 3 to 5 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I have long-term relationships with people that, we actually haven't even worked together, but that person has led me to other opportunities. But yeah, you have to be patient with it. And I think that a lot of times people don't understand that concept, that it does take a long time to build those relationships, and it's not going to be an immediate, transaction. That's why I think the term business development is kind of misleading too. It feels so transactional.
Yeah.
Impersonal. It feels like it's just about the deal. But the best business developers, in my opinion, they're looking for something far greater than that.
Yeah.
And something that's going to be enriching for their personal life and their professional life. So
Well, who doesn't like doing business with someone they like?
Exactly.
And,
I mean,
and a friend.
yeah.
Those are the best phone calls to get, when you get to work with someone that you've known for a really long time.
Right.
So,
And someone you trust too. So, because I mean, especially in this industry, on every project, things go wrong. Things go south on every project. And you want to be working with somebody that you know has your back. Somebody who knows you, knows that you are coming in with great intentions, and is going to be like, hey, I see this happening. Let me help you over here, and you help me over here. If you don't have that relationship, there might be, more opportunities for that person to throw you under the bus, or things to just get, more, it just gets trickier.
I definitely like the projects where the owners know me. That can be a double-edged sword, because they can call you all the time and text you all the time. But
Saturdays, that happens
at the same
sometimes.
time, they may be the first ones to show you some grace whenever you've had a bad situation happen. So
yeah, it makes a big difference. And I like to tell the story about when I was just starting to really start focusing on building relationships. And again, it happened pretty organically for me, but I was involved in a networking organization and got on a committee, and I was probably 28 years old, and I, became really good buddies with this guy who was just kind of a goofy Irish kid. And now he is the leader of his company. He is extremely successful, and he's just a text message away,
Yeah.
And so I think, one of the most important things with building relationships and starting to do this, no matter who you are and what strengths you have, starting to build those relationships now is going to just benefit you throughout your career. Honestly, I don't think I could have started Connect4 without those long-term relationships.
Yeah.
I mean, 2 of my, most recent clients are old friends of mine in the industry. They're like, you know what? Actually, we totally need you right now. Please come in. And so it makes a big difference.
yeah. Do you feel like you have to be an extrovert to be in business development?
So very popular question.
Okay.
And I do not think you need to be an extrovert to be a great business developer. Because again, it's really about making connections and true connections, and whatever that means for you, you approach it the way that you're most comfortable. You don't have to go to large networking events in order to be a great business developer. If that makes you really uncomfortable, it's really important for you to understand what you need in order to feel like you are, successful, you're energized, and you're excited, because that's when you're going to be doing your best work, no matter what you're doing. So if you're an introvert and you want to build relationships, then you need to approach it the way in which it's going to fulfill you. And so I have a good friend. I actually asked her, one of my best friends, from college. She is an introvert. She does a lot of business development. I was like, this is my assumption, but can you just validate this for me? And she's like, absolutely. And the way she does it is she knows that she's going to need some downtime. She does have to go to a lot of conferences. And so she will go to these conferences and she will, before the networking event, she'll literally be laying in bed and just like trying to just every ounce of energy that she has, she's trying to soak it up and fuel up. And then she knows she can work the room for a little bit. And then she's going to have a break after that.
Yeah.
You know, she's not going to be able to go nonstop. So absolutely not. I mean, I think we all have friends, right? So as an introvert, how do you make friends? It's the same concept.
Yeah, it is interesting because I mean, as big as I am in the relationships, I don't necessarily love walking into a room full of 40 people I don't know. Now, if I walk into a room with 40 people I know and they know me, I'm going to have a blast.
That's fun, yeah.
So I don't know if that's a extreme extrovert or introvert category that I fall into, but I do know that if I join a group, which I did a year or so ago, and I systematically kind of go through and have individual meetings with those people, get to know them. Now those big events are really easy,
right?
Because people know you. You can easily walk into a group and you can have a conversation with them. It's not awkward anymore. And I think that's the piece. I think a big piece to overcoming that introvert, I think, is to be organized and kind of have those things planned out a little bit better.
Right.
I know someone at our firm that is really good at relationships because they're so organized and they plan these things out so well that they can keep track and thing about relationships is being intentional. And when people know that you're continually going to reach out to them and you're gonna hold a date for them and you're gonna stand by what you said or that you scheduled, I think that means a lot to people. After a while, they get it. Like, okay, this means something to them, and that they start being willing to give that time too.
Yep, for sure. Yeah, I think being organized is really important. I think having your strategy is really important. It's funny, Andrea Pender, who works with RLG, she talks about how she read somewhere the phenomenon of in group settings, if you walk up to a group of odd people, it's easier for you to integrate into the conversation versus even people, like even amount of people, which I thought was really fascinating.
The one I've heard is horseshoes and rings. So I was telling somebody, they knew I didn't want to go to this group activity. It was with a bunch of people I wasn't familiar with. And I said, let's hope for a bunch of horseshoes. And they looked at me like I was crazy. And they said, what do you mean? I go, well, if you walk into a group and you see a ring, you can't include yourself in that ring. If you walk up to a horseshoe, there's a spot. I mean, there's an opening. Yeah. You can stand right. You can walk right into that spot.
Did you come up with this?
No, somebody told me. I wish. Oh man, I wish. No, someone had told me that years ago, and I don't even remember who it was. But
that's good. I like that.
It's kind of stuck with me because I walk into a room, see a bunch of rings, I kind of start going into a panic attack. I'm like, oh man, I don't know how I'm going to do this. I'm an awkward person.
I usually look for the person and like one person who's pacing or looking down at the floor and panicking. I go straight to that person. Everything's gonna be okay.
Just because you're wanting to take care of them.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
My name's Emily.
Yeah.
You know,
so every group needs an Emily to bring the introverts out.
And like we were talking about earlier, there's an Emily explosion right now. I'm meeting so many Emilys.
Yeah.
Maybe we're all like, if you look statistically at like when the name Emily is popular, which has been a long time. Maybe we're all hitting our prime, I guess, or stride.
So that's what gave you the drive to create Connect 4, is that you have that heart for people to feel included and kind of pull that introvert out of them.
That's my number one on the Strengths Finders is empathy.
Okay.
So empathy and then woo. So wooing people over.
Okay.
Those are my two things. Yeah, I really just love people, and I love learning people's stories. I love learning about how they got to where they are. And it's funny, I had a podcast, I mentioned this, I had a podcast that I just did 25 episodes, which I'm proud of. I thought I was gonna do it a lot longer, but it became really exhausting. But one thing I learned through that process, which was really amazing and humbling, that I was not expecting. I was interviewing people who I thought were just doing amazing things, and I wanted to learn about how they got there and what struggles they had. And the common theme all the way through, I was meeting with really successful people. I kept hearing stories of pain and loss and tragedy, but overcoming those and then celebration and success that followed. And there was something about those conversations that, since it was a common thread through everybody, it started really making me realize, like, we are all human. We're all going through these experiences every day, insecure, unsure of what we're doing, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times we think that we're the only ones.
Yeah.
Like, you're in your career, like, am I doing enough? I'm struggling, or I don't know what success looks like for me. And I've really used that when it comes to building relationships, because now I know if I want to connect with somebody who I think is like the top of their game, who is killing it, maybe I would have been intimidated before this experience. I'm not intimidated at all now, because I'm like, that person, she's been through a lot.
Yeah.
And I don't know what it is yet, but she's been through a lot, and she's been really insecure at times, and she's been nervous to ask for a meeting with someone who she's impressed with. So I'm going to go ask her for a meeting, and I'm going to learn that story. And so those are the things that's the kind of stuff that gets me really excited and geeking out
I've
about.
found that sharing those trials, tribulations can really bring you close to someone. In fact,
Quickly.
I've had situations where I've not been a fan of somebody, where I've really it's a struggle for me to be around them. And in a situation where we were having to work together, just me and them, having those conversations, and then those things come up, and hearing some of their heartache, whatever it may be, expressing some of mine, all of a sudden I'm like got like a soft spot for them.
Right.
And all of a sudden I'm like, okay, this isn't, still not like my favorite person,
Yeah.
but you're human.
Right.
You like you said, the human factor, you have something to you that.
Now you have that connection, and that's something that can really grow and build into something bigger.
Yeah.
And that's where trust forms.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where the magic is. So when you hear the term business development, it's like, this is just not giving it justice. This is a magical thing.
Yeah. One of our, on the sharing trial, or not trials, but just awkward things you probably wouldn't normally share about yourself. One of our owners, one of his favorite things to ask when we get new people in is, he likes to play Two Truths and a Lie.
Oh yeah, that's a fun game.
And you'll be amazed.
It's a good way to break the ice.
It is. Some of the things that come out of people's mouths, and you're just immediately, I don't know, you just immediately are okay with having
Right.
conversations you wouldn't have had otherwise.
Yeah, you get to kind of
stayed
reveal
surface
a little
level.
bit about yourself,
Yeah.
and that kind of having that just humor behind it. It takes the edge off. Yeah, because everybody's feeling a little uncomfortable on day one, and so that's a great way to do it.
So Connect Four's been in business since 2021.
2021. Yep.
That's not real long. Do you have any success stories that you like, that you kind of think back on? And you're like, man, that's awesome. I got to. Be
Yeah,
involved
you know
in that.
what? I started Connect Four. I just felt called to it. I was like, I really want to help people learn how to do this, because clearly I think it's amazing and really, really fun. And I think it just makes people's lives more full. And I really wanted to share that with people, specifically within this industry, because I really love this industry and think we're shaping the world, right? So it's important. And what was so fantastic about it is, obviously, I'm going out on a limb to start my own business. You never know if it's going to flop or if it's going to be successful. I know no matter what, that I'm going to learn something from the experience. So whether it isn't what I thought it was going to be or not, I'm going to learn something. But right out of the gate, I got 2 clients, like just immediately. For me, it was just really incredible validation that what I'm doing is valuable and it's something that people need. And I think that was one of the biggest ones. And quite honestly, that it's still going on and it's evolving, and I'm learning. It's not a static thing that's like, it is this. It's like, no, I'm started creating a method I call the OSS method, which is basically how I approach business development. The first O is, or the only O, is orient. It's really orienting yourself to your company and understanding why your company exists and really getting emotionally connected to that. You can see a common theme here. Because if you're emotionally connected to what you're doing, people can see that, they can feel it, and you're not a salesperson, right? The second one is systemize. So this is about how to hold yourself accountable, because business development and building relationships, you do have to have consistency. You do have to have systems in place that hold you accountable and to allow you to reach your goals.
Yeah.
And then the last one is seek, and it's seeking the people, the partnerships that are going to help you fulfill your destiny. It's being very intentional about who you're spending your time with, because oftentimes business just comes to us, right? And if you're not really thoughtful and intentional about where you want to go as a company or as an individual, then you're going to just end up wherever you land.
Yeah.
But otherwise, if you seek out those relationships that are aligned with your vision or aligned with where you want to go as a company, you'll get there a lot faster.
So you're kind of talking around the question is how do you go about picking that ideal client or relationship to the target client, we'll call it. Yeah.
Yeah. So I actually have a couple worksheets that I've developed to help people get to that point. But it does start with understanding where you want to go. Where do you want to go?
Yeah.
And what are the characteristics of the people that you need to partner with in order to get you there? And it could be as simple as, we're really focused on climate change, combating climate change through landscape architecture. Well, okay. Well, you probably want to work with a client that's really important to them.
Yeah.
So understanding your client's kind of wishes, visions, dreams, pain points, that's how making those decisions will help you get there faster.
Well, Emily, tell me how you came up with the name Connect 4.
Yeah, it was interesting. It was the first name that came to my mind. I wrote it down, and then I was like, maybe this isn't it. And then I went in circles and circles and circles, and finally came back to it. The reason why I like it so much is obviously it has connect in it, which is what we're doing, and Connect 4, F-O-R, is really asking a question. Why are you connecting? It's going a little bit deeper because just like we've been talking about, I really kind of hone in on being very intentional. And so Connect 4 is really begging you to be intentional. Ask yourself, why am I meeting with this person? Why is this important? How is this going to bring value? And how is this going to, bring me greater impact or influence at my firm or company?
Connect 4, how would you go about handling those relationships? The easy ones are the ones where, I jokingly said I was going to talk about hunting here. The easy ones for me is whenever I get a client that loves to hunt, and we just immediately touch on all points of interest. What about those that you really feel like this is someone I need to know? I think we could benefit each other. They're a good person. It's not. They just don't have similar interest. It's conversations aren't always the smoothest, but both of you would benefit from that connection. How do you go about managing those relationships?
It's interesting. Whenever I meet with somebody, especially someone I don't know very well, I do a good amount of research. I mean, LinkedIn's a great tool. You can also go and just look at maybe this person's been written in articles, or maybe they're involved in certain organizations. I like to really try to understand what's driving that person, and whether it's a point of joy, or whether it's a pain point. How can I connect with that? One of the examples that I like to use a lot is I have basically two emails that I put side by side. One is from someone from AT&T who's just asking me for money and like, will you please sign up for this? It's so impersonal. They're asking way too much too soon. And then the other one is really is flipping that whole email on its side. And it's like, if they would have done just a little bit of research, and granted, this is AT&T, so we all know what we're getting into, but as far as just a really, really large company that's not gonna be able to have the resources to do this, but just to prove a point, if you would have changed that and you're writing it to me, and I went to University of Georgia and I love Georgia football, and you say, congratulations on winning the national championship, I will write you back. I will call you back, and we're probably gonna meet. So if you're able to kind of figure out what that is for that person, game over. You can reach out to anybody. And if you're able to make that connection, then it's going to resonate, and you're going to have that.
Have you ever had the flip side of that, where you had someone that you just really connected with, but you just couldn't get past the similar personal interests, and you needed to move it to that next
level
of,
for sure.
hey, we do have to talk about business at some point.
Absolutely. And you do need to be cognizant of that, because you can just become friends, and that's just fine. You can become friends, but you have to know, again, we've got a lot of things competing with our time. A lot of things. We have families, we have phones buzzing constantly, we have emails that are rushing in nonstop, lots of things that are saying, hey, look at me. And time is precious. So you've got to be very intentional and aware. If this relationship is a friendship, great. Put it in the friendship zone. You guys become friends. You can help each other out. But, getting to the point where it's like, okay, like let's talk a little bit about what you're working on, what I'm working on, what you've heard in what's going on in the industry. Yeah. How can we help each other be successful? It's really important to be able to ask that question when you reach that level of comfort and knowing.
Yeah, that's always that's probably a tough one. I can sit there and let conversations linger longer, and I'm kind of looking at my watch going, I do need to get some stuff done today.
Right.
And as much as I'm loving every minute of this conversation, it's time to
wrap it up.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I think that's I don't know that there's a specific way of handling that other than just be aware of it and know that you do have to eventually get to that point.
Yeah, It just takes practice too. I mean, you just go out there and you'll start to recognize that more and more. And again, it's not a bad thing, but it's just being conscious of it so that you are not wasting your time.
Yeah.
And you're not wasting their time.
Well, Emily, I want to thank you for joining us today. This was awesome. I love getting to meet you and maybe start a relationship here. And thank you for everybody joining us and paying attention to our podcast. I'm Colby Post with HP Engineering.
It's my pleasure.
See you next time.
Thank you so much for having me.